Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. The British Prime Minister Theresa May has used the last Prime Minister's question time to explain her government's plan, strategy for Brexit and other security matters concerning Britain. She insisted that she wanted Britain to be a global leader in free trade and support in providing humanitarian assistance to the people of Yemen.
Now to be regular sessions of the Joint Ministerial Council to discuss Brexit, but it seems the Prime Minister's counterparts are already feeling the same sense of frustration as members of this House. The First Minister for Wales, Carwyn Jones, said there is a great deal of uncertainty, but they are clear they need full and unfettered access to the single market. Can the Prime Minister help the First Minister of Wales, and indeed the other devolved administrations, by giving them some clarity?
Well, first of all, can I commend, in response to the comments that the Right Honourable Gentleman made, can I commend the Home Office for the work that it's been doing in ensuring that it is working carefully to look at the best interests of the child refugees so that they are provided with the support that they need when they come here to the United Kingdom. Can I also join him in commending my honourable friend, the member for Grantham and Stamford, for being willing to be so open about the health problem that he has, and we wish him all the very best for the future and for his place here in this House. In relation to the issue of clarity on the aims that the government has in relation to Brexit, I have been very clear, and I will be clear again. There are those who talk about means and those who talk about ends. I'm talking about ends. What we want to see is the best possible arrangement for trade with and operation within the single European market for businesses in goods and services here in the United Kingdom.
Jeremy Corbyn! I thought for a moment the Prime Minister was going to say Brexit means Brexit again. There are others... I'm sure she'll tell us one day what it actually means. The Mayor of London also added this is causing unnecessary certainty, but it's also very important. Uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, it would be also very helpful if the Prime Minister could provide some clarity over the Northern Ireland border. Will we continue membership of the Customs Union, or are we going to see border checks introduced between Northern Ireland and the Republic?
The Leader of the Opposition tries to poke fun at the phrase of Brexit means Brexit, but the whole point is this. Brexit, it's this government that is listening to the voice of the British people. Brexit means Brexit. That means we're coming out of the European Union. What the Right Honourable Gentleman tries to be doing is frustrating the will of the British people by saying that Brexit means something completely different. Now, in relation to the Northern Irish border, a considerable amount of work was already going on with taking place with the Irish government to look at the issues around the common travel area. That work is continuing. We have been very clear, the government of the Republic of Ireland have been very clear, the Northern Ireland Executive has been very clear that none of us want to see a return to the borders of the past. And I would simply remind the Right Honourable Gentleman that the common travel area has been in place since 1923, which was well before either of us joined the European Union.
Jeremy Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, on Monday the Prime Minister said the Customs Union was not a binary choice. Well, I can't think of anything other than a binary choice is whether you have a border or you don't have a border. There isn't a third way on that one. On Monday, her friend, the Honourable Member for Broxtowe, expressed concern of the automotive and aerospace industries, while the British Banking Association said its members are poised quivering over the relocate button. Every day the Prime Minister dithers over this chaotic Brexit, employers delay investment, and there are rumours circulating about relocation. This cannot carry on until March of next year. When is the Prime Minister going to come up with a plan?
I have to say to the right honourable gentleman, I think the fact that he seems to confuse a customs union with a border, where they are actually two different issues, shows why it is important that it is this party that is in government and dealing with these issues, and not his. He talks about the plan. I've been very clear. I've been very clear that we want to trade freely with both trade with and operate within the single European market. I want this country to be a global leader in free trade. The Labour Party is against free trade. I want to introduce control on free movement, so that we have an end of free movement. The Labour Party wants to continue with free movement. I want to deliver on the will of the British people. He is trying to frustrate the will of the British people.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there was no answer on the border, which was the question. And on Monday, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister told the House, and I quote, "We have a plan which is not to set out at every stage of the negotiation the details." I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, Mr. Speaker, and I think when you're searching for the real meaning behind and the importance behind the Prime Minister's statement, you have to consult the great philosophers. The only one I can come up with.
Mr. Cleverly, calm yourself. You're imperiling your own health, man, which is a source of great concern to me. Jeremy Corbyn.
All I can come up with, Mr. Speaker, is Baldrick, who says our cunning plan is to have no plan. Brexit was apparently about taking back control. But the devolved governments don't know the plan, businesses don't know the plan, Parliament doesn't know the plan. When will the Prime Minister abandon this shambolic Tory Brexit and develop a plan that delivers for the whole country?
I'm interested that the right honourable gentleman chose to support Baldrick. Of course, the actor playing Baldrick was a member of the Labour Party, as I recall. I'll tell the right honourable gentleman what we're going to deliver. We are going to deliver on the vote of the British people. We're going to deliver the best possible deal for trade in goods and services, both with and operation within the European Union. And we're going to deliver an end to free movement. That's what the British people want, and that's what this government's going to deliver for them.
Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, the United Kingdom backed Saudi Arabia for membership of the UN Human Rights Council. On the 28th of October, there are elections again for the UN Human Rights Council. A UN panel has warned that Saudi Arabia's bombing of Yemen has violated international law. Amnesty International says, and I quote, "Executions are on the increase, women are widely discriminated against, torture is common, and human rights organisations are banned." So will her government again be backing the Saudi dictatorship for membership of that committee?
As the right honourable gentleman knows, where there are legitimate human rights concerns in relation to Saudi Arabia, then we raise them. In relation to the action in the Yemen, we have been clear that we want those incidents that have been referred to be properly investigated, and we want the Saudi Arabians, if there are lessons to be learned from those, to learn lessons from those. But I will reiterate a point that I've made in this House before, that our relationship with Saudi Arabia is an important relationship. It's a particularly important relationship in relation to the security of this country and counter-terrorism and foiling activities of those who would wish to do citizens harm here in the UK.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, Tahir Qasim, a Yemeni man who lives in Liverpool, told me this week that Yemen is quickly becoming the forgotten crisis. If people aren't being killed by bombs, it's hunger that kills them. The UK needs to use its influence to help the people of Yemen. Bombs exported from Britain are being dropped on Yemeni children by Saudi pilots trained by Britain. If there are war crimes being committed, then, as the UN suggests, they must be investigated. Isn't it about time this government suspended its arms sales to Saudi Arabia?
The issues are being investigated, I say to the right honourable gentleman, and we have taken action. He's right to refer to the humanitarian crisis in the Yemen, and this country is one of those that is in the forefront of ensuring that humanitarian aid is provided. That is a record of which I believe that this country and this government can be proud around the world in terms of the actions that have been taken. It is important. There was a cessation of hostilities in the Yemen, which was for a period of 72 hours over the weekend. As I've referred to in this House on Monday, I spoke to the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi at the weekend, and one of the issues we discussed was the importance of trying to find a political solution in Yemen and seeing if possible that cessation of hostilities could be continued. It hasn't been continued, but we're very clear that the only solution that is going to work for the Yemen is actually...
US President Barack Obama has said the Affordable Care Act, despite the success story it has recorded, still needs to be improved. Mr. Obama said that the necessary legislation to make it better will only be possible if political rhetoric and partisanship are put aside. The outgoing U.S. president said that he believed that affordable health care is not just a privilege, but a right for every American.
We fought to make sure that in America, health care is not just a privilege, but a right for every single American. And that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I want to talk about here today. You know, you've heard a lot about Obamacare as it's come to be known. You've heard a lot about it in the 6.5 years since I signed it into law. And some of the things you've heard might even be true. But one thing I want to start with is just reminding people why it is that we fought for health reform in the first place. Because it was one of the key motivators in my campaign. And it wasn't just because rising health costs were eating into workers' paychecks and straining budgets for businesses and for governments. It wasn't just because before the law was passed, insurance companies could just drop your coverage because you got sick right at the time where you needed insurance most. It was because of you. It was because of the stories that I was hearing all around the country and right here in Florida. Hearing from people who had been forced to fight a broken healthcare system at the same time as they were fighting to get well. It was about children like Zoe Lynn, who needed heart surgery when she was just 15 hours old, just a baby, just an infant. And she was already halfway to hitting her lifetime insurance cap before she was old enough to walk. Her parents had no idea how they could possibly make sure that she continued to make progress. And today, because of the Affordable Care Act, Zoe is in first grade, and she's loving martial arts. And she's got a bright future ahead of her. We fought so hard for health reform because of women like Amanda Heidel, who lives here in South Florida. As a girl, she was diagnosed with diabetes. And that's a disease with costs that can add up quickly if you don't have insurance, can eat away at your dreams. But thanks to the Affordable Care Act, Amanda got to stay on her parents' plan after college. When she turned 26, Amanda went online. She shopped for an affordable health insurance plan that covered her medications. Today, she's pursuing a doctorate in psychology. And Amanda said that the Affordable Care Act has given me the security and freedom to choose how I live my life. The freedom and security to choose how I live my life. That's what this was all about. Zoe and Amanda, the people who I get letters from every single day, describing what it meant not to fear that if they got sick or a member of their family got sick, if they, heaven forbid, were in an accident, that somehow they could lose everything. So because of this law, because of Obamacare, another 20 million Americans now know the financial security of health insurance. So do another 3 million children, thanks in large part to the Affordable Care Act and the improvements, the enhancements that we made to the Children's Health Insurance Program. And the net result is that never in American history has the uninsured rate been lower than it is today. Never. And that's true across the board. It's dropped among women, it's dropped among Latinos and African Americans, every other demographic group. It's worked. Now, that doesn't mean that it's perfect. No law is. And it's true that a lot of the noise around the health care debate, ever since we tried to pass this law, has been nothing more than politics. But we've also always known, and I have always said, that for all the good that the Affordable Care Act is doing right now, for as big a step forward as it was, it's still just a first step. It's like building a starter home or buying a starter home. It's a lot better than not having a home, but you hope that over time you make some improvements. And in fact, since we first signed the law, we've already taken a number of steps to improve it. And we can do even more. But only if we put aside all the political rhetoric, all the partisanship, and just be honest about what's working, what needs fixing, and how we fix it.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has become a key factor in Republican voters' choice of whom they vote for into U.S. House Congress in the election. A divided Republican Party and its voters are having trouble to manage voters for the House races.
Ellen is exactly the kind of voter the Republican Party is worried about.
I have no intentions of voting for anybody unless they have acknowledged, publicly endorsed, or said they're going to vote for Mr. Trump.
Trump supporters like her are putting down-ballot Republicans across the country in a difficult position.
Helping me re-elect Republicans.
As Trump drops behind Clinton in the polls, the fear is that he will take House races, like the Florida 13th where Ellen lives, down with him.
If you're not going to vote for your nominee, I'm not going to vote for you. David Jolly, I'm not voting for him.
Hey, sir.
Jolly, Ellen's current congressman, has never supported Trump.
Donald Trump is toxic for down-ballot Republicans. Toxic. He single-handedly might be responsible for Republicans losing control of the House of Representatives.
Jolly denounced his opponent, Democrat Charlie Crist, for an ad photoshopping Jolly's face to make it look like he has met with Trump, and fired back with his own claims.
It is the only race in the country where the Democrat is tied politically and personally to Donald Trump.
How are you? Nice to see you.
A charge Crist brushes off, saying Trump's not a factor in this race.
I've had a lot of people fundraise for me. He was a supporter, and that's it. How are you?
Formerly a Republican governor, Crist now condemns Trump.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Democratic candidates are pushing voters here in Florida and across the country to take a look at their Republican opponents and their stance on Donald Trump.
Congressman Micah and Donald Trump.
In Florida's 7th congressional district, Democrat Stephanie Murphy's ads link the voting record of her opponent, Congressman John Micah, with Trump's controversial statements.
I'm running. My name is Stephanie Murphy.
Murphy betting a link to Trump won't sit well with voters in a district evenly divided among Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
If you stick with your party nominee, either you're putting your politics and your party above the people, or these and your principles, or these are your principles.
But those attacks are unwarranted, says Micah supporter Nick Primrose.
He's said that he will support the nominee of his party, but he's also condemned him for some of his language and some of his policies.
Transportation and infrastructure are important.
Micah is making his case on local issues. not the national discussion about Trump.
He is a man who gets stuff done for Central Florida, and they just kind of forget that he's associated with, the Republican Party.
2 races, 2 ways of dealing with Donald Trump. And the strategy that wins on Election Day will decide the next Congress and the future of the Republican Party.
While with less than 2 weeks before the election, U.S. presidential candidates Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton are locked over control of key battlegrounds in the election. Both candidates were in Florida campaigning, while Mr. Trump also was in Washington to formally open his new hotel.
Protesters calling for a boycott of Trump hotels gathered outside Washington's old post office pavilion, where the Republican candidate inaugurated his new luxury hotel. The demonstration was organized by a union representing employees in his hotel in Las Vegas after he refused to negotiate with them. Inside the historic building, Trump touted the project in the nation's capital as an example of what he could achieve as president.
A project like this demonstrates what is possible when a team works together for a totally common purpose. It also shows how to work with our government and to get things done. My theme today is 5 words: under budget and ahead of schedule. That's what we did.
He also fought critics complaining about the time he spent off the campaign trail.
I built one of the great hotels of the world. What am I supposed to do, not show up? I'm taking 1 hour off. I'm going to North Carolina right after this. Then I'm going back down to Florida. I'm going up to New Hampshire. I'm all over the place.
In a last-ditch effort to catch up with Hillary Clinton in the opinion polls, Trump is addressing various groups, including dual American-Israeli citizens.
My administration will stand side by side with the Jewish people and Israel's leaders to continue strengthening the bridges that connect not only Jewish Americans and Israelis, but also all Americans and Israelis.
His Democratic rival is also focusing on so-called swing or battleground states.
Every vote counts. Just ask my friend, former Vice President Al Gore. And Lake Worth can make the difference. Florida can make the difference. And if people get out and vote, we will have a victory on November the 8th.
Clinton's daughter Chelsea campaigned for her in Ohio, where Trump maintains a lead in the polls.
We have to turn Ohio blue up and down the ballot, and I know we'll do that with your support.
Clinton appears to have no shortage of supporters in California, where Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was vandalized by a sledgehammer in the pre-dawn hours Wednesday. A suspect was arrested later in the day, and the damage was quickly repaired.
With that report, we conclude the news roundup for this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Tunde Alabi. To the rest of your week. Bye. Our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom. Our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.